welcome everybody as I bring AP's film back into the screenshot. There we go. He's here now. I am Fletcher, and with me I have the ever reliable, the constant Andrew Pearson. How are you going, man?
I'm going good, buddy. How you doing?
I'm good. What a contrasting scene on our cameras today.
I know,
Beautiful
right?
sunshine on the Sunshine Coast,
Yep.
and
And
New Zealand.
dreary rain.
Yeah.
New Zealand weather.
Yeah, classic New Zealand weather. I,
Nice one.
uh,
Nice one.
I, I'm excited to be here with you. As always, I say that every time, but it's I truly mean it because I really love talking about the Surface family, and we have the last Surface family device that we haven't covered off yet to talk about. We've left one of the coolest, the most unique, probably the most premium devices to last. We have the Surface Studio 2. And this is a pretty interesting conversation because it is so different to the other Surface devices, isn't it, AP?
Yeah, it sure is. It's kind of sets itself apart from everything by being completely different. But I think like continuing on with that innovative design factor that we've sort of come to expect from Surface. And I remember when this came out, everyone was like, "What is that? That is amazing." So yeah, I'm a big fan of it. I was lucky enough to have the first one, and I still use it today. It's stood the test of time. It's brilliant. So I'm loving it.
That's good. That is good. I um I haven't ever been lucky enough to have a Surface Studio for myself. I've just been clicking through some images as well, so people can see the different form factors. But I've
Yeah.
demoed it a lot because we are, for those of you who are subscribed to our YouTube channel and don't know, we are part of Microsoft's training team. And we go around to expos and all sorts and we demo this device all the time. And I can tell you, no matter what environment you're in, if you have a Surface Studio set up and you maybe have even if you have the wallpaper, but especially if you have some sort of drawing app like Sketchables open, people just gravitate towards you. And they gravitate towards the device, and everyone wants to get hands onto it, and they get a great Surface experience. Probably one of the best Surface experience out there, and generally that leads people to wanting to know more about the rest of the Surface family as well, because it is such a fun, awesome device to use. So how do you think you would use it, AP?
Well, I guess I mean, I use it as my productivity piece
Hmm.
at home, really. Saves me having an external monitor because it's 28 inch, which is really cool. I can have it at different angles. I mean, we're doing a lot more creating these days,
Hmm.
Fletch. So I probably use it most as a creative device, using the webcams built in, making sure I've got all of the stuff on the screen that I need to be able to see, and that's kind of a nice way to be able to interact with it via touch too.
Yeah.
It's not just another monitor. But yeah, there's lots of different ways that people can use it and interact with it, especially designers as well too. I think it's kind of broken through a few barriers of having to have multiple devices. You can now sort of do it all in one.
Yeah, I agree. Like, this is an ultimate creative device, really, when it comes to it. And it's got an amazing zero gravity hinge, is what we call it. It's this hinge here. I hope you can see my mouse on the screen. And what you
Yep.
can do is you can get your finger, put it at the top of the screen, and with a single finger, you can push it down, and it goes down to a 22-degree angle, which you can see this lady using right here. And that 22-degree angle is the exact same angle that your traditional draft boards have been on. So that means that creatives, architects, designers, people who have used draft boards in the past feel incredibly comfortable with the device. And then you can pick up the pen, which magnetizes onto the side, get a Surface Dial, because the Surface Dial is amazing with this device. Put that Surface Dial onto screen. You can rest your palm on the screen. It's not going to disrupt what you're doing. And you can use your other hand to write and draw, sketch, whatever you need to do. Make use of things like the on-screen ruler on an amazing, yeah, like AP said, that 27 27.5, 28-inch display if we don't get too picky. And it is amazing. It's just a truly great experience. And as you're drawing, that surface dial will be able to swap between the different pen tools, change your opacity, change the line thickness, and just give you a seamless, amazing experience on a beautiful 4.5K monitor, which really, really, truly picks out everything. And AP, to make that all better, guess what you can do?
What can you do?
You can swap between a few different visual modes on the device. So you can have your like traditional RGB display, but if you're a designer, if you're a photographer, you know that isn't the one that you always want to use, right? So you can have it on PCIe3. What's the third one? I always forget the third one, AP. I'm hoping you might be able to help me out, but I
We done
understand if you
sRGB?
don't. Yes, sRGB. So
sRGB, PCI. I think the other one might be
PCIe3.
just a standard, like a vivid mode for
Yes.
watching videos and things, but you can add in additional ones in the back end. So a really good use case for that is if you've used Mac for a long time, they've got their own version of sRGB. So you can use Apple sRGB and make that one of the toggle switches, so you can bring your work with you and use it on a new device using the same Adobe program that you did before.
That's so cool, and that's so powerful, and you don't need a restart or anything. It's just live changes, so you can make sure that whatever you're working on appears as realistic as possible once you've polished it out and sent it out. So, creators, it's awesome. But AP, you mentioned that you use it for a productivity device, right?
Yeah.
And I want you to talk about one of your favorite programs, Excel. How good is Excel on that beautiful big 3x4
It's
massive screen?
unbelievable. Especially working on multiple sheets. Sometimes I think having the ability to be able to click between them on a reasonable size. So I'm working on a Surface Book 315 now, which is pretty reasonable size. But it just doesn't compare to having it on the Studio at all. And the fact that I can actually have 4 spreadsheets open at any one time, because you can quadrant snap them. And if for people who haven't had any hands-on experience with a Surface Studio before, it's effectively got 4 Surface Pros worth of screen real estate on there. So if you're happy to read it on a Surface Pro, you can have 4 of those on the screen at any one time. And my productivity tip, I guess, with Studio is just utilizing the virtual desktops. So you can have all of your stuff open and then swipe to the next virtual desktop, and you've got all of your things operating at the same time as well too. So that really helps me. I just can't live without it, to be honest.
It's not only Excel that's awesome. Like I think I can't remember the cell. It goes from like A to AG, which for me, like that's something I wish I had, because everyone who works in Excel knows you get sick of scrolling to the side and up and down for your data, and you just don't have to do it as often on this. And all of us get stuck into raw data and use things like ideas in Excel or pivot tables to try and make it better looking, but it's just so much easier on there. But if you're using Word and you have Word zoomed at 100%, the A4 sheet on Word is exactly the same as an A4 sheet of paper in real life as well. So you are going to be looking at exactly how it's going to print out and look as if you're holding that paper.
I did not know that.
That's awesome. Really cool, right?
Yeah, that's super cool.
And it's got the power to back up not only the productivity and the creative side, but it even will back up some gaming. Like you might have seen that we had a Forza Horizon 4 slide here showing off what it can do. But these come with some serious graphics cards and some serious processors. It's 35% faster than the original Surface Studio, and that's because it has some beefy 7th gen i7 processors in there, which are all quad core. They're all full desktop processors, which, if you know your computers and your specs, which we don't talk about too much personally, it means that it's going to put a lot of laptops to shame. And it's also, unlike the original one, got more SSD space in it as well. So it's 1 terabyte or 2 terabyte SSD hard drives. So not only have you got a lot of space, but you are going to be able to access what's on there really fast. Your computer's going to start up fast. Your programs are going to start up fast because it doesn't move and it just shoots that information across quickly. So you will notice that difference. But more importantly, it's got some amazing graphics cards in there. It's got a GTX 1060 and a GTX 1070 GPU with 8 gig of extra RAM just there, just dedicated to
Amazing.
the creativity and stuff you're doing. So you are gonna notice it, and you're gonna enjoy doing that creative work and enjoy doing it in a pretty seamless fashion.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I think the addition of the SSD hard drives as well too, is something we should shout out, because the original had a small
Hybrid,
SSD and a
yeah.
hard drive. Yeah, and now I think probably some feedback we got from the first generation was that people wanted to have SSD on board just for rendering and transferring of files, and having 2 terabyte SSD, that's pretty mega and exactly what people in the creative space would want and need to make themselves super productive.
Absolutely. And the other thing about this device, we've talked a lot about the functionality, the way we can use it, but it's just a beautiful looking machine, and that is something you would expect, because we are pretty straight up. It is not a cheap machine either. So we're based in AP's based in Australia. I'm based in New Zealand, like we said earlier, and it's not cheap in either market, and it won't be cheap in your market either, wherever you're watching this from. But you get an amazing device that is just beautiful on your desk. There's only a single cable going out the back, and that is the power cable. That's running out that really small footprint stand. And all the accessories that come in the box match it perfectly. You get a Surface mouse and you get a Surface keyboard. So you only have that one cable. If you're anal about tidy desk like me, then that's amazing. And you've got the accessories to match, which I appreciate that, especially when it's a premium machine, which you're paying premium prices for.
Absolutely. That's one of the things I think I like most about it, is it's a one-stop shop. Even the SD card reader in the back and all the ports, you don't even have to have a dock. Everything's built into it, but it's nicely hidden away too. So it still looks just as good with heaps of stuff plugged into it than it does sort of standing on its own.
Yeah. I'm very jealous of you, AP. I'm very, very jealous. And the other thing about that power cable is, if you're walking behind a desk which is just sitting in the middle of the room, you'll probably had the experience of tripping up over the cable. And normally that would bring monitors and stuff crashing down, right? But
Yeah.
the power cable on this has a quick grip release, and what that means is when you're walking behind it, and if you trip up on that cable, it's designed to pull out. So
Yep.
rather than bringing your seven grand, at least in New Zealand, amazing all-in-one device crashing down and you having to do a tearful insurance claim or something like that, the power cord should just rip out and not destroy your device along with it. So I love
That's kind of a good thing, isn't it?
it's so good, and it's like really bringing into that little what we talk about with Surfaces. A lot of the little things have had an insane amount of thought put into them, to accommodate as many different situations as possible.
Yeah, absolutely.
The other thing I wanted to shout out with this is it's our last Surface device which comes out of box with Windows 10 Pro from
Yes.
a shop floor, and that's not something to sniff at. We've done we had Surface Pro with Windows 10 Pro for a long time, and we're slowly been phasing Windows 10 Pro out of the Surface space when it comes to where your average consumer like you or me would buy it from. But because of the price of this device, and because we do see a lot of businesses buy it, a lot of design companies buy it, and a lot of executives buy it for their personal device, it needs to have Windows 10 Pro because it brings in a whole lot of added features. Do you want to talk about some of the security features, maybe AP?
Yeah,
And
sure. I think that that you're dead right. This is the kind of device that you'd expect to come with Windows Pro on it. Things like BitLocker for data security is really, really important. Also, networking, so domain join is really important for some businesses that aren't completely moved to the cloud now. So, and you do need Windows 10 Pro for those kind of, I guess, security features.
yeah,
And that would be expected for a professional device going out in the field. So I think it would be a big oversight from us to not include Windows 10 Pro, especially on something like this.
yeah, and BitLocker is an amazing tool for those of you guys who don't know about it. It's a tool that really protects your device from being hacked when it comes through the software. So it's a big string of code. If someone gets their hands on the Surface Studio 2 and somehow takes it from you and they want to do like a reset or they want to try access data, they're going to find that pretty much impossible to do because of the code that BitLocker has. And you can even put BitLocker on things like USB sticks as well. So it's called BitLocker to go. So if you do have something that's really sensitive that you have to put on a USB, you don't want to use something like OneDrive or SharePoint, then you can actually encode that USB with BitLocker. So only people with that BitLocker code can get into it. And that's backed up through the hardware as well. So Windows 10 Pro devices work best when they're out of box with Windows 10 Pro because they have something called a TPM chip in. And this might sound like gobbledygook, but it's protecting the actual hard drive, right? So it's making it so it's really hard to get into the hard drive, even if you ripped it out of the computer and we're doing it, trying to get into it through a backdoor without some sort of software. And the other thing is, a lot of these people who buy the machine and do buy it for a business, like AP said, they'll use domain join, but they'll also, just use their email address to set up the device. So what Windows 10 Pro offers you is some amazing features, and again, you might not have heard of them, like Azure Active Directory. What that does is your organization might have that set up, and it means that when you're actually getting this device and unboxing it, and if you are using it for work and putting in a work account onto it, then you just need to put in your email address. Your organization will find that this device is trying to link with it, and it'll automatically populate it with your work account. So it's a really quick, seamless setup. Of course, your organization has to have done some of the back-end work to make that happen, but typically a lot of large organizations are using that now. So not only do you get those added security features, but you get easy deployment. And there's one other thing that I want to shout at AP. Maybe you might want to talk about it though.
Sure.
I think this is a great device for programmers too. Would you agree? It's got the power, it's got that screen real estate for when you're checking your code, and also because it has Windows 10 Pro, it has something called Windows Sandbox on it. Do you want to talk about Sandbox, AP?
Yeah, absolutely. So for programmers, not only would it be nice to have all of that screen real estate to be at lines and lines and lines of code flying past and multiple windows and testing environments. Windows Sandbox is built into Windows 10 Pro, and basically what it is it's a kind of like a virtualized environment, but it's on your actual PC rather than having to be virtualized, say, in Azure or any other cloud service. So if you're testing an app or you're testing a program or you're testing an update, you can actually test it within the natural environment that this program or app is going to live in. And that's one of the key testing tools these days, because I think that people can develop, and then as soon as it comes into a different environment, things are not as maybe it was predicted. And that's where a lot of processes can be sort of stopped and then have to be reworked. So with this sandbox environment, it doesn't cost you any more money or power. You can run this on your PC whilst you're changing the code simultaneously and not send it out to your entire business and potentially ruin some stuff. So we don't talk enough about it. I think it's very developer specific. But if you're in an organization running these kinds of things, that's a really, really important thing to have and to use on Windows 10 Pro. And it's a relatively new feature. So you had to have additional software or some cloud stuff, or people who knew how to run those testing environments in the cloud previously. Now you can just simply run it on your PC. So I think that's a really, really great shout out, Fletch. I hadn't thought of that one.
Oh no, thank you. So I think we've nearly kind of tied up this conversation already, but we do need to probably go back to design and just mention one last thing, and that is just talking about some of the ports. So we talked about there normally only really needing to be one cable coming out of the back of that little small base. But on the back of that base, AP's already mentioned it, there's an SD card reader. Is that on the back, AP, or is that somewhere else? Yeah.
Yep, it's on the back. Yep.
There's also 4 USB ports, and they are all 3.0, yep. And one which is a high power port, so if you want to charge your phones and stuff out of there, you'll have better luck doing it. There's a USB-C, a headphone jack, and a Ethernet port as well. So you can keep your desk pretty clean no matter what, in the way that most cables will be coming out the back, or they'll be running straight out the back and down the back of your desk, so that you don't have a whole nest of cables spreading everywhere.
Absolutely.
Which my desk, unfortunately, even though I say I like to keep it tidy, is kind of looking like at the moment. So, but do you think there's anything else? Have we missed anything? Is there any questions from the chat?
Not that I can see at the moment. I just think something to reiterate as well too, that this really is for designers and creatives. And you went back to talking about the drafts or the draft board angle before. The zero gravity hinge, it's really light to pick up, but it's super strong. So you can lean on it just like you would on a drafting board or a creative canvas that you're used to. I've seen some pretty interesting, shall we call it, tests on the strength of the hinge, and it's designed to be used that way, as well as the dial on the screen at the same time. It's designed to run that way, and I think it's just a real credit to the engineers. How can you make something that my kids can lift up and push down, and they're under 5, yet you can have an adult put their entire forearm on there for hours and work on the stuff, and it still keeps its torque and torsion the way, just as if you'd got it out of the box on the first day.
That's a really, really important point, because you don't want to talk about having palm lock and stuff if you can't actually rest your palm on it.
Well, yeah, so, that's right.
So, I do have some maybe one or two other things that I just thought of because I like to talk. But before I dive into those, I want to take a break and just shout out some of the other great things we're doing through all our social channels at the moment. So Thursday's a busy day for us. We started the morning with a stream. You can go back and catch that. I did a Bannerlord because I just can't help but do that once every now and then. So you can go into our channel, give us a subscribe if you haven't already, and check that out. But later on today, AP is actually presenting some Expert Zone news over on our Facebook page. That's at Expert Zone ANZ on Facebook. Before Steve does a throwback Thursday stream, because we love alliteration in the Expert Zone ANZ team. So that's over on our Expert Zone ANZ Mixer channel. And if you are a registered Microsoft partner, so if you are one of our retail partners, we do have a promotion going on called the Expert Zone Scavenger Hunt. I'm just going to chuck those details into the chat now. And what it is you can go onto our training website, Expert Zone, and when you're on there, you'll see that there's a Expert Zone Scavenger Hunt article which tells you where you need to go hunting today in order to win some good prizes. And I'm going to have to do this in 2 parts because it's a pretty big message. So hold the line, caller. But the one thing that I did kind of want to build upon, because AP made me think of it, is we have he talked about design and the weight and everything like that, which is absolutely important. But we also it looks amazing, and partly because of that, we actually see that this is used in a lot of really, really fancy stores around the place. I know that I'm trying to think of the store. It's a big London brand. Is it Carriages or something? They actually use it as POS terminals in that store. Like, that's crazy, right?
That is crazy.
And then we've got there's some famous designers who do all their clothes designs on it as well. And because I'm trying to multitask, I've forgotten the name of the brand, so I probably shouldn't have started the story. But yeah, there's some very, very famous places that use it just because of the look as well. And with that, I will finish getting these links sent up to set up, and we will be calling the stream there. AP's cracking up at me because he knows that I'm really busy working, so he's going to start talking for me and fill the space.
Oh, that's brilliant. Thanks for joining in, guys, today. Thanks, Fletch, for doing an amazing job, a la normal. It's been cool to sort of go all the way through the surface range and just see some of the really ingenious engineering that we've put into these devices, and I've thoroughly enjoyed sort of deep diving on all of these things as well, which is pretty cool. So, like Fletch said, check out all the social stuff that we're doing. It's our first Expert Zone news today, so that could be good or bad. I'm not sure. Hopefully it goes all right. So thanks, people. Keep it locked to our channel. Thanks, Fletch, and we'll talk to you next time.
Awesome. Thanks, everyone, and I will catch you. Remember to keep it locked to Expert Zone for all of Microsoft's latest software and hardware articles to keep yourself up to date. Peace out, EZers.